me here on set. Philip, where do you think US-Ukrainian relations are right now?
Well, let's put it this way, shall we? I don't think they could get any worse than they were back on the 28th of February when there was that standoff in the Oval Office between Volodymyr Zelensky and Donald Trump, where Volodymyr Zelensky was basically berated and humiliated in front of the world, and Donald Trump said this makes for great TV. Then there was the meeting on the 15th of August between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. Many people saying, well, this is obviously the support that Donald Trump is still continuing to give Vladimir Putin, not sanctioning Russia, and basically blaming Ukraine for the war, saying that Ukraine would have to make concessions, hand over territory, and it was Ukraine who was responsible for the situation because they shouldn't have gone attacking a country that was 10 times bigger than they were. But that seems to have shifted since then. There was that rushed meeting by Western leaders in America, in Washington, just after that on the 16th of August, who went there to support Volodymyr Zelensky when he met Donald Trump again. That meeting seemed to go well. This time round, we've seen a shift in what Donald Trump is saying. I think basically because Donald Trump has been alluding to the fact that he thinks Russia's economy is on the fall and in a very bad way. He calls Russia a paper tiger. He sees more now with Volodymyr Zelensky, someone who might be able to win the war. And what Donald Trump really likes is a winner. He wants to back the winning horse. And I think he's seen a shift in what he believes is a possibility for Ukraine to be able to get back territory. Yesterday, in that press conference, he did something quite unprecedented. He gave the floor to Volodymyr Zelensky, saying, would you like to talk to the public? And it was then that Volodymyr Zelensky said, yes, we've taken back 300 kilometers or so of territory. So I think that Donald Trump sees now that there is a possibility the Ukrainians could win the war, certainly with the support of the European Union and the Europeans. The big question mark is, well, there are a couple. The first one is, what support is the US willing to give? Because we still don't know whether the US is going to provide direct weapons. Donald Trump is saying, we will sell the weapons to Europe. They will then give those weapons or sell those weapons to Ukraine. And also, will Donald Trump once again change his mind? So is all of this going to hold or not? Of course, from the Russian point of view, they immediately dismissed this, just saying that Russia is not a paper tiger and it still is in a strong position to be able to win the war. That doesn't appear to be the message coming out of the White House right now.
Philip, where Donald Trump really did ramp up the rhetoric against Russia was by saying NATO should shoot down any Russian jets which stray into NATO airspace.
Well, once again here, this is something else that is quite unprecedented, and it could also be a risk or provide a risk that Russia sees this as an act of war. So the ante has been upped. There's been an increase in the risk now that if that does happen, we could see more conflict and possibly a start of conflict between a NATO nation and Russia. And I think nobody really wants that, not even the Russians. There's also something else that we don't know, and that is, well, if this were to happen, what would the United States do? Would they come in and help the country that had been responsible for shooting down that Russian drone or that Russian plane and back up their military to make sure that Russia doesn't launch a full-scale attack? We don't know the answer to that question either. What Donald Trump has been saying is that, yes, I support the United Nations. Yes, I will support those countries. But we don't know in what capacity that is going to happen. And the other question that we don't know the answer to is, what's the chain of command in all of this? Where does it come from? Who's going to make the final decision? There's going to be obviously someone not just saying, okay, there's a missile, we'll shoot it down. There'll have to be orders given. So who's going to make that final decision? Is it a military decision or is it a political decision? And what political decision will that be? Will it be following talks between President Trump, Volodymyr Zelensky, President Trump, Vladimir Putin, before that decision is made? So a lot of unanswered questions. We're really in unprecedented territory. And because we don't know the answer to all of these questions, that opens a gap for Vladimir Putin to push NATO just a little bit further and say, okay, they don't know what they're going to do. Let's try again. We'll fly over this country or send a drone over that country to see how NATO is going to react. So what the Russians are doing is testing NATO countries. NATO countries don't seem to be able to come up right now with a firm decision about what exactly their action should be.
Philip, I know you want to talk about Copenhagen as well. This is, of course, that series of drones which closed down Copenhagen Airport in Denmark, also Oslo Airport in Norway on Monday. I mean, the figures being pointed at the Russians here, but would they really try something like that?
Well, There is a possibility, the Baltic Sea is just nearby. Kaliningrad is not far away from the Scandinavian countries. There are at least 75 Russian ships stationed in the sea there. They are constantly trying to pull up cables and to spy on what is going on. So it is possible that those drones took off from a ship and they were sent to Copenhagen Airport and also to the airport in Oslo in Norway. They were proper. They were called capable actors. That's the term being used. They're not just hobby drones. They were professional drones. We don't know who was behind them. But Mette Frederiksen, the Prime Minister of Denmark, has pretty much pointed the finger at Russia, saying that it looks like the Russians were in behind all of this. I think with two aims. The first one is to test how countries like Scandinavian countries manage their critical infrastructure, especially airports. And the second one is to see how they're going to react to all of this. So we're in a hybrid warfare situation. This is not like jets or bombs falling. It's a hybrid organisation to see what's going to happen. There are some conclusions to be drawn. The first one is this shows the vulnerability of critical installations in Europe. There's no decisions been made so far as to how those installations should be better protected. And experts say aviation regulators need to take more proactive steps to fight against risks to cybersecurity, navigation systems and overall safety. Otherwise, we're going to see this happening again and again with more disruption, more delays, more planes cancelled. And that's something, of course, that the Russians would like to do just to cause more disruption in Europe.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Philip Turle, International Affairs Editor here on France 24.